Long before the reign of Targaryen kings, the First Men ruled over Westeros, migrating through the Arm of Dorne and waging war against the Children of the Forest to claim the land. For thousands of years, they prospered, ruling kingdoms large and small, even making peace and becoming allies of the ancient children who retreated into the deep woods, even adopting their faith in the old gods and veneration of heart trees. Yet in time, the First Men lost many of their holdings when a new people from across the sea began their migration west. Although many date the start of the Andal Invasion to 6,000 years before conquest, some maesters argue it was nearer to 4,000, while others still say 2,000. Nevertheless, when the tall, fair-haired men of Essos descended upon the First Men, they were relentless in their pursuit of lands and riches, threatening to supplant them all across the continent. Legends say that it was their destiny to inherit these lands, as it was a promise made by their god, who appeared before them in the form of 7 different deities, to crown Hugor of the Hill as first king of the united Andal tribes. With the blessing of the gods and the promise of a mighty kingdom in foreign lands, they left Andalos and sailed west. Yet most maesters disregard such tavern tales, and over the years sought to more properly understand the Andal migration in a historical context. From their work, many have come to believe that the Andals originated in the lands of the Axe, though some others claim they may have come from the area south of the Silver Sea. For centuries, they were a migratory people, and in their travels learned ironworking from the civilization of the Rhoynar. Eventually they settled the lands of Andalos, driving out the hairy men who previously populated the area. While dwelling in Andalos, they came to worship the faith of the Seven, and thrived for many years, until the rise of the Valyrian freehold in the east. The Dragon Lords of the Valyrian Peninsula first conquered the old empire of Gis, before turning west to defeat the Rhoynar. It is therefore believed that as the Valyrians began expanding, many of the Andals sailed to Westeros, seeking to escape their fury. Those that remained behind fled into the north for a time, but were eventually conquered. Yet those who went into the west found great success, spreading their religion and culture throughout the south. The Andals also made war against the Children of the Forest, burning their sacred trees while hunting and slaughtering them wherever encountered. As a result, the children were largely wiped out, with those that survived retreating into the far north. Journeying across the narrow sea, the Andals first sailed into the Fingers of the Vale, where they encountered House Shell and Brightstone, ancient enemies that each claimed kingship over the area. Unwisely, the men chose to hire Andal warlords to continue their wars against each other. Yet when the warriors arrived, they turned against the First Men instead, slaughtering the kings they were meant to serve. As the fighting went on, an Andal knight named Corwin Corbray conquered these lands and named himself Lord of the Five Fingers. Understanding the larger threat these invaders posed, King Yorwick Royce VI and his descendants united many of the First Men houses of the Vale in opposition. While this alliance succeeded in delaying the conquest, some refused to unite behind the Runestone Kings. House Shet of Gulltown chose a similar path to those in the Fingers, attempting to ally with the Andals against their fellow First Men, only to be betrayed by House Grafton and replaced as the lords of the city. Eventually, House Royce was defeated, and the Andals of House Arryn came to rule the territory from their fortress of the Eyrie. Those First Men, unwilling to bend the knee to these foreign invaders, fled into the Mountains of the Moon, where they formed clans and lived as free men, raiding and plundering to survive. After conquering the Vale, the Andals went into the Riverlands and spent years warring with local powers. Stories from this period speak of the fall of Maidenpool and the alliance of Blackwoods and Brackens that was crushed by 777 charging Andal knights. There were also the 3 sons of Lord Derry, who held off Vori and Viprin, killing hundreds of Andal enemies before they were slain. Although some claim the children had fled the Riverlands before the invasion, others say they remained in the territory for some time, and used their magic to send 100 wolves upon a group of Andal invaders in the Whitewood. Considering the Children of the Forest to be abominations, the Andal warrior Erig the Kinslayer attacked Highheart, killing the children, their First Men allies, and cutting down the sacred weirwood trees. It was only under the First Men king, Tristopher Mudd IV, that significant opposition could be assembled. Legends claim he fought 100 battles, winning 99 of them, and even beheading King Roland Arryn II, who invaded from the Vale. However, Christopher was defeated when 7 Andal kings went against him, uniting their forces. With the death of King Christopher, the First Men could no longer withstand the invaders, with most houses submitting to Andal authority and intermarrying. Yet the invaders had less success with Crackclaw Point, later marrying into this region when it could not be conquered. They also failed in their attacks upon the Isle of Faces, defended by the Green Men sworn to protect their weirwood trees. As a result, stories say some of the children of the forest who dwelt in the area may have survived the years of war by seeking refuge with their allies on the island. The Andal conquerors then went on to war against each other for centuries, until House Justman rose to rule the Riverlands. Embroiled in their own conflicts, House Durrandon paid little attention to the Andals until they married into House Massey, longtime enemies of the Storm Kings, and took possession of Massey's Hook. For years, the Durrandon kings waged war against the invaders, winning at least 6 major confrontations, including the Battle of Bronzegate, where King Manfred Durrandon V died while vanquishing the Holy Brotherhood of the Andals. Nevertheless, the invaders made some significant gains, eventually conquering Tarth and Estermont. Other Storm Kings, like Baldric the Cunning, manipulated Andal warlords into attacking each other, while Durin the 21st joined the Children of the Forest in the Weirwood Alliance, defeating their enemies at Blackbog, the Misty Wood, and the Howling Hill. Later, King Cleodin I allied with 3 Dornish kings to defeat Drox the Corpse Maker at the battle on the River Slain. After failing to capture Storm's End for a 7th time, the Andals were at last ready to make peace with the Storm Kings, marrying into House Durrandon. In the Westerlands, King Tybalt Lannister successfully repelled an attempted invasion, as did his successors, until they made peace and intermarried. When King Gerald III died without a male heir, his daughter's Andal husband, Joffrey Lydon, chose to take the Lannister name, and so the Kings of the Rock continued to rule, even expanding their power during the Andal migration. Seeing so many other territories of Westeros fall to the eastern invaders, the Houses of the Reach spent decades preparing their defenses, yet war never came, thanks to the 3 sage kings of House Gardner, who chose a policy of accord and assimilation rather than open warfare. Beginning with King Garth Gardner IX, he brought a septon of their faith to court and allowed the construction of the first sept in Highgarden. His son Merle Gardner I then converted to the faith of the Seven, funding septs, septries, and mother houses, as well as taking an Andal maiden as his wife. Then came Gwayne Gardner V, first king born into their new faith, earning his knighthood and, like his father, married an Andal maiden. Under King Gwayne, the Andal knight Alistair Tyrell was made champion and sworn shield, allowing him to form House Tyrell. Alistair's second son, Gareth, then later became the royal steward of House Gardner. Gareth and his own son, Leo, did so well in this position, High Steward of Highgarden became a hereditary title for the descendants of House Tyrell. Further south in the deserts of Dorne, the Andal houses of the Ullers, Corgyles, Vaiths, Alarions, Jordanes, and Santagars all established their own realms, as well as House Martell, which defeated the First Men houses of the Wades and Shells to claim the lands near the mouth of the Greenblood. Having conquered so many of the southern realms, Andal culture and religion became prominent, yet it failed to properly take root in the Iron Islands. The Easterners, having allied with the First Men houses of Drum, Greyjoy, Hoare, and Orkwood, defeated the Ironborn king Rugnar Greyiron II, and while their new king, Harris Hoare, intermarried with the Andals and allowed the faith of the Seven to be practiced, their religion and traditions never took hold, and the population largely remained faithful to the Drowned God and the old ways. The Andals had even less success with their invasion of the north, where their advance was at last halted. The Kings of Winter met the southern conquerors in battle on a number of occasions, beginning with their raids along the eastern coast. Ready to aggressively defend his realm, King Theon of House Stark made common cause with House Bolton to defeat the Andal warlord Argos Sevenstar at the Battle of the Weeping Water. Afterward, the Hungry Wolf, as he was known, sailed his ships across the narrow sea and attacked Andalos in retribution, slaying many and displaying their heads along the eastern coast of his territory to deter future attacks. Later, the Andals once again attempted to invade, this time from the Riverlands, but were thrown back time after time by the Crannog men of the Neck. Unable to defeat this ancient kingdom, they eventually relented and accepted First Men rule in the north. As a consequence of the years of war and migration, the Andals of the South came to mix with the First Men significantly, and many adopted a policy of compromise, allowing for the worship of the old gods in the south, even permitting many of the castles and fortresses throughout the land to keep their gods' woods. Nevertheless, it was the Andal language, system of writing, use of iron, and traditions of knighthood and chivalry which took hold in the southern realms, leaving the north as the only major territory where First Men culture and traditions survived. Do your shopping on Amazon? Then why not use the link in the description box below to either enter the Canadian or American Amazon sites, where you support the channel with every purchase at no extra cost to you. So if you do your shopping on Amazon anyway, why not use the link below and help support CivilizationEx? A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Killian Shadowcat, Michael Edwards, Master of Dagger and Coin, The Smiling Cow, and Uriel of House Dunatar. If you would like to help CivilizationEx, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and click on the links to see more.